Hello and welcome back to yet another election prediction video, and this time I'm going to be analyzing if there's a similar polling error as there was in 2020, who will win this election? Will it be Trump or will it be Harris? And if you want more videos like this, make sure to like and subscribe. And back to the video. So as we can see, the popular vote averages have Harris up by about 2 percentage points, but this is very similar to a different election. The 2016 election had Hillary Clinton leading the popular vote by 2%, and Donald Trump won the Electoral College. So just because Harris is leading the popular vote in polling doesn't mean that she will win the Electoral College or even that she'll win the popular vote. Even though I do think she will win the popular vote, we still have to analyze if there's a similar polling error, who wins this upcoming election. And we can see in 2020 the polling error was about 4% on the state level, and the national average was about the same. And in the past two elections with Donald Trump, the polls have favored the Democrats. And 4 out of the last 6 elections have had polls favoring the Democrats. And this is pretty significant. Anything above a 3% error is significant, and we have to ask ourselves, why do the polls favor the Democrats? Well, it could be that Republicans just don't submit the online polls. They just don't do polling as much as Democrats do. So for that reason, Democrats overperform in terms of polling. But regardless, if there is a similar polling error, we'll see who will win this upcoming election. So I'm not going to waste my time with the safe states, as those states are going to go to one candidate or another nonetheless. I'm not really going to even do the margins this time with these states. We all know who these states are going to. So now that we've already put down the Democrat safe states, here are the Republican safe states. We have Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, Utah, Alaska, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska. And also you can see that Republicans have more safe states, but the individual safe states give less electoral votes, which is why Republicans are losing to Democrats after the safe states are tallied up. Texas and Florida, which do go to Republicans pretty often, we saw they went to Trump in the past 2 elections. They can't be classified as safe states, but they give a whopping 70 electoral votes. So currently, I'll give those 2 states to Donald Trump as he is leading in both states, and the polling error in both states would give them even more to Donald Trump. We can see in Texas, Donald Trump is leading by an average of 6 percentage points. And in Florida, Donald Trump is leading by slightly less, a pretty similar amount, but still less, 4 percentage points. And with the 2020 polling error, with that being 4 percentage points, even the 2016 polling error, they will still go to Donald Trump in this upcoming election. If you want a more specific chart of who will win with the polling error, I've used this chart before, and this is the chart with each individual state. So we have this chart. I do like this chart because some states are more accurate in polling than other states. As we can see, Louisiana and California very accurate. New York very inaccurate. So this chart is much better. Texas and Florida both shifted to the right on election day as opposed to polling by 4 or 5 percentage points respectively. So these margins can be shifted more to the right. So now Trump is leading 201 to 196. And there are 2 states that the polling error won't really tell you much about. This is Minnesota and Ohio. And this is because these are the states of the VP candidates, so we can't really use any data from 2020 to identify where they'll go in 2024. We can generally see that Ohio went to Trump, Minnesota went to Biden in 2020, and now that the VP candidates are from these states, it will likely be very similar in this upcoming election. And now we have Trump leading by 12 electoral votes. And now we'll go from the least electoral votes to the most electoral votes, and we'll start with Nebraska's second. So this really doesn't show Nebraska's second, but Nebraska as a whole is very accurate, and Nebraska's second is polling towards Kamala Harris. We can see in these polls in Nebraska, really, it's telling a story that Kamala Harris is leading by about +5. She'll be leading by as much as +8. And with this small polling error, she will win in Nebraska's second, whereas Trump will win in Maine's second. While Maine as a whole may be a different story, Maine's second district is likely going to Donald Trump, with him leading by about +7 in this recent poll, and with polling in Maine being pretty accurate. However, Maine as a whole is, like I said, accurate with its polling, and it is going to Kamala Harris. We can see she's leading by +9 in this recent poll, and with Maine's accuracy, we can say that it will go to Kamala Harris. And next we have New Hampshire, which has the same amount of electoral votes as Maine, but it is all consolidated, and Harris is leading by as much as +11, as little as +5, and the polling error in New Hampshire was about 3.3. The polls in New Hampshire were not inaccurate enough for it to flip to a different candidate. So New Hampshire still goes to Kamala Harris in this upcoming election, but it is slightly closer than Maine. We can see Maine, the margins are more like that, and New Hampshire, they have closer margins. So Harris is losing to Trump currently by about 6 electoral votes. And now the next state is Nevada with its 6 electoral votes. And Nevada had a polling error of about 3.7, and it went towards the Republicans more than the polls said. The polls predicted that it would have a shift to the left between 2016 and 2020, when in actuality it did not really shift at all. And that was pretty interesting given almost every state shifted towards the left in 2020. And we can see in polls in Nevada, Harris is slightly leading by as much as +4, and Trump leading by +1 in some polls. And if we account for the polling error of about +3.7 towards the Republicans, Trump is narrowly leading in the state of Nevada, bringing himself to 225 electoral votes. And now we get to Wisconsin. So Wisconsin is a state where a recent poll did have Trump in the lead, but most polls have Harris in the lead, with Harris averaging +1.9. However, the polling error was extremely large in Wisconsin. It went more Republican than anyone predicted, and it barely went to Biden when the polls said it would go to Biden by about +8. So we can say that Wisconsin, if it has even a marginally similar polling error, it will go to Donald Trump in this upcoming election, with Trump now leading by 22 electoral votes. This election is falling out of Harris's hands. It is going towards Donald Trump. And now we get to Arizona, a state with 11 electoral votes that actually has Trump in the lead. If we account for its pretty accurate polling, Trump is still in the lead in Arizona, leading 246 to 213 against Kamala Harris. And finally, we get to a swing state that Kamala Harris might actually win, with that state being Virginia, the home of VP candidate from 2016, Tim Kaine, and now the home of Tim Kaine still. It does seem like Harris is leading by about +7 on average. The polls are going more and more towards Donald Trump on average, but Harris still maintains a pretty large lead, and the polls in Virginia are relatively accurate. So we do give Virginia to Kamala Harris, with her trailing Trump by 20 electoral votes. Now we get to Michigan, a state where Harris is overperforming Biden, and we can see that in Michigan, in polls, she is leading by about 2.7. Polls in Michigan were very inaccurate back in 2020, going Trump +5 on election day as opposed to polling. So we do see that Trump still wins Michigan, even though Harris is doing better in Michigan in terms of polling than Biden was when he was still in the election. In fact, Harris is leading in most of these states when comparing her against Biden. And that just goes to show that switching out Biden for her was a pretty solid move by the Democrats for their electoral chances. And now we get to 2 states with the same amount of electoral votes, being North Carolina and Georgia. I'll start with North Carolina because that one is projected to be closer. North Carolina is going to Donald Trump by 0.1% according to the polling average. It went to Trump by a larger margin in 2020 as well as 2016, and will still likely go to Trump in 2024. If we account for the polling error of about 3 points, Trump will likely win in North Carolina by about 3 percentage points, winning the state and getting 277 electoral votes and winning the election. So now at this point, let's just see if he will outperform himself from 2016. And we'll start with Georgia. In Georgia, Donald Trump has been leading in most polls, and I can assume that he will win in Georgia. He's leading by about 1.1%. In polls in Georgia were very accurate back in 2020 and will likely be similarly accurate in 2024, giving Trump the victory in Georgia. Now he leads 293 to 226. And he has a chance at beating his 2016 self. But that's if he wins in Pennsylvania, where he is currently losing in polling by about 1.5 percentage points. However, they shifted plus 3.5 on election day, so we give Pennsylvania to Donald Trump, and he wins 312 to 226 over Kamala Harris. So it does seem like Donald Trump performs better when we account for the polling error from 2020. And if you want more videos like this, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment. And thank you for watching.